North America's USA occupies an area of 9857306 kilometers squared, land borders 12,002 kilometers, coastline 1990-24 kilometers. Washington is the U.S. capital. Inhabitants 331449281 overall. As one of the original 12 nations to sign the North Atlantic Treaty in 1949, the United States is a member of NATO. Nearly all of the weaponry used by the U.S. military is produced domestically. The defense industry is capable of designing, developing, producing, and maintaining the whole range of weaponry. The top exporter of weapons worldwide is the United States. China is a nation in Eastern Asia that spans 9596961 kilometers squared, with 14,500 kilometers along the coast and 22,24557 kilometers inland borders. Beijing serves as China's capital. The Central Military Commission of the ruling Chinese Communist Party, which commands the People's Liberation Army, is in charge of the PLA. The PLA is mostly equipped with a diverse array of contemporary and vintage domestically manufactured systems that have been greatly impacted by foreign technology. Outside of the national industry, Russia is the primary provider of military hardware. An interactive look at the U.S. China Military Scorecard. China's People's Liberation Army has evolved into a formidable contemporary military during the last 20 years, from a sizable but outmoded force. China has increased its relative capabilities in several important areas, even if it still lags behind the U.S. in terms of total military gear and operational expertise. Forces, geography, and the changing balance of power. The U.S.-China Military Scorecard was compiled by RAND using publicly available, declassified information to further public discourse. This extensive study compares and contrasts the military prowess of the United States and China across 10 domains of operations, providing a scorecard for each. From 1996 to 2017, each scorecard evaluates the relative advantages or disadvantages of Chinese and American forces in various combat types at varied distances from the Chinese mainland at different times. Advantage refers to the situation when one party accomplishes its main goals while the other struggles to do so in a time frame that is relevant to operations. China's offensive objectives would need to hold advantages in almost all operational categories at the same time to win in either of the scenarios below. Holding the upper hand in a select few regions would help the United States accomplish its defensive objectives. However, China's increased performance can result in more expenses, a longer war, and more dangers for the U.S.-Chinese aviation base attack. China's efforts to neutralize American air power capabilities are not surprising, considering the role that air power has played in America's recent wars. Most importantly, the PLA is capable of developing cruise and ballistic missiles that pose a threat to forward U.S. air bases. China's inventory today includes over 1,400 ballistic missiles and hundreds of cruise missiles, up from a small number of conventionally armed ballistic missiles in 1996. They have a rising number of intermediate-range ballistic missiles that can reach American facilities in Japan, even though the majority of them are short-range weaponry. What's more, accuracy has also gotten better. Weapon ranges have grown. The closest U.S. airbase to the Taiwan Strait, Kadena Air Base, was the target of ballistic missile attacks in RAND models. These models indicate that even a small number of precise missiles could prevent flight operations for several crucial days at the beginning of hostilities, and that concentrated, deliberate attacks could shut down a single base for weeks. The threat may be lessened by U.S. countermeasures, including enhanced fortifications, strengthened aircraft shelters, quicker runway repair techniques, or the dispersal of planes. However, unless the United States makes a significant technological advance in defense, as more American aircraft are compelled to operate out of sites that are either more vulnerable to attack or located further away from the front lines of combat, basing concerns will exacerbate the difficulties the United States faces in achieving air superiority over the battlefield. Air superiority between the U.S. and China. American Air Force and Navy planes would be essential in thwarting Chinese attacks in almost any East Asian situation. The F-22 and F-35 are examples of the so-called fifth-generation aircraft that the U.S. has introduced and modified since 1996. In the meantime, China has switched out a large number of its antiquated second-generation aircraft, which accounted for the majority of its force in 1996, with cutting-edge fourth-generation models. These fourth-generation aircraft currently make up around half of the fighter inventory of the PLA Air Force. Overall, these adjustments have reduced, but not eliminated, the disparity in quality between the air forces of the United States and China. Using the proper basing, flight lengths, and force structure data, we used tactical and operational air combat models to assess the effect of this shift on the two scenarios under consideration. The models assess how many fighter aircraft the U.S. would have to keep in the Western Pacific to thwart a Chinese air assault. The findings imply that since 1996, U.S. standards have increased by several hundred%. In the Taiwan instance of 2017, American commanders most likely would not be able to locate the basing necessary for American forces to win a 7-day campaign. They could lessen their time requirement and win a longer campaign, but doing so would make land and naval forces more susceptible to Chinese air power for the same amount of time. Slightly fewer forces would be needed in the Spratly Islands scenario than in the Taiwan scenario, making it an easier situation. U.S. airspace incursion. The emergence of Chinese air defenses, which would make it more challenging to operate in or near Chinese airspace in the event of a confrontation, worries U.S. commanders just as much. Approximately half of China's more than 500 long-range surface-to-air missile SAM systems in 1996 were Chinese copies of the antiquated Russian SA-2 missile, which had a range of about 35 kilometers. China had over 200 launchers for double-digit SAMs deployed by 2010. The more recent missiles can go up to 200 kilometers and have more advanced seekers. The Chinese Integrated Air Defense System, IADs, has grown to be a formidable hurdle when combined with more proficient fighter aircraft and the advent of new aircraft equipped with airborne warning and control systems. But at the same time, new stealth aircraft and CEAD, suppression of enemy air defenses, aircraft have helped the U.S. Air Forces increase their penetration capabilities. We assessed American strike aircraft's potential to breach Chinese defenses in the Taiwan and Spratly Islands scenarios using a target coverage model. The findings indicate that China has gained ground, as even the more advanced U.S. troops are less able to enter Chinese airspace with a reasonable degree of danger due to China's enhanced IADs. According to our airspace penetration model, between 1996 and 2017, there was a considerable loss in the capacity to enter and hit targets opposite Taiwan, with little danger to the U.S. aircraft involved, even while standoff attack capabilities, stealth, and SEAD lessened the impact of Chinese defenses. Still, the American capacity to reach targets in the Spratly scenario is significantly more reliable. This is due in part to the fact that a much smaller target set can be attacked with the same number of vital but rare U.S. assets, such as stealth aircraft and standoff missiles, as well as the fact that the relevant target set is generally closer to the shore. American airbase, attack. Although entering Chinese airspace has grown riskier, particularly in the high-threat area across from Taiwan, the United States now has more options and power because of the development of new generations of precise weaponry since 1996. Today, almost every iron bomb used by American forces is outfitted with guidance systems, such as Joint Direct Attack munition, making them precision weapons that can be used in any weather. U.S. troops can employ a spectrum of standoff weapons at extended ranges. These missiles can strike targets hundreds of kilometers away and can be used from an increasing number of platforms. The U.S. Air Forces can attack more targets and inflict more damage with each attack, thanks to their wider and more varied arsenal of precision and standoff weapons. In summary, China's nuclear force will have increased, while the United States will have decreased, but by 2017, the United States will still have a warhead advantage of at least 13-1. In any of the snapshot years taken into consideration, a Chinese first strike could not realistically deprive the United States of the opportunity to retaliate. Chinese survivability, on the other hand, has greatly increased. Only a few Chinese systems may have survived a U.S. first strike, according to nuclear exchange modeling from 2003. Even this outcome would have hinged heavily on China deploying her lone, unreliable She-class SSBN ballistic missile submarine before an attack. More Chinese warheads survived in the 2010 and 2017 examples, and no foreign leader could seriously consider a disarmament first strike on China. So this is the end of our today's video. Do you like it? Kindly give your valuable response in our comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting and informative videos.